storyteller. Whether humorous fiction or factual accounts of her youth, her stories captivated me, molded me, and planted a seed within me that would one day grow into a calling. Mama began filling my head with tales when I was just a little girl. She sat on the edge of my canopy bed, stroked my long hair, and wove a humorous plot about Farmer Brown's wife and the chickens that flew through her kitchen window. What a mess they made in poor Mrs. Brown's farmhouse. Those fowl wreaked havoc. Silly chickens were the last thought I had before drifting off to sleep. I also heard numerous anecdotes while I rode in the passenger seat of my mother's Oldsmobile. She'd point to places in our hometown and tell stories about them. I still know the exact spot where she fell off her bicycle on College Street, and will never forget the harrowing tale of the drifter who jumped off the train on Boyd Avenue, banged on her Aunt Audie's back door, and paced the porch whistling an eerie tune. I'll forever picture the older couple who lived on Washington Avenue and were terrified their new color television was going to damage their eyes, so they wore sunglasses. I would laugh so hard that I snorted when Mama regaled us with the tale of visiting them and being forced to put on dark glasses to watch Gunsmoke. I especially loved to hear my mother talk about the summer she spent with her refined and elegant Aunt Nancy on Fairfax Avenue in Nashville. Aunt Nancy was a beautiful woman who wore diamonds and sapphires and loathed dirt. She went so far as to wrap newspaper around the gas and brake pedals in her car to keep them spotless. Aunt Nancy was also often embarrassed by her husband James's lack of filter. Mama loved to recount the time Uncle James told a chatty dinner guest to quit talking and start chewing, while Aunt Nancy turned 24 shades of crimson and my young mother covered her face with her napkin to stifle her laughter. And Lord have mercy, I will never forget the story about Betsy. Betsy went to school with my mother and lived in a beautiful house on the hill near the high school. On her way home from school, Mama passed right by Betsy's house where Betsy's mother kept her 1959 Impala parked on the street out front. Betsy was not quite old enough to drive, but she would sit inside that car, and each time someone passed her house, she would pump the brakes so it seemed that she had just parked the massive Chevrolet. She spent many afternoons doing this just so her classmates would think her parents allowed her to drive. Mama said sometimes Betsy would honk the horn and wave too. That visual of young Betsy trying her best to fit in with the older kids will forever live in my mind. I'd always loved hearing my mother's stories, but it never occurred to me to write my own until I was 8 years old. I had checked out a book at my elementary school library called The Trouble with Tuck. I vividly remember the picture on the cover, a dog and a girl sitting under a tree. The girl's shirt was tucked into terribly short shorts, and it looked awful uncomfortable. So I thought maybe the trouble she was having was with that shirt tucked into those tiny shorts. But after reading the back cover, I realized that Tuck was the dog. And as a dog lover, I was sold. I took the book home not knowing it would change my life. I was lying on my bedroom floor, a chubby kid with a little Debbie in one hand and the book in the other, when I reached the part where Tuck went blind. Tears poured from my eyes and dampened the pages. I was terrified I was going to get in trouble for soaking and getting fudge round on those pages by our strict librarian who kept a wooden paddle with holes drilled in it on her desk. But once the fear subsided, I realized something beautiful had happened. That book made me feel something. It brought me joy and laughter as I read about the little girl and her best friend going on adventures, and then the book made me cry my eyes out. Right then I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write books. Not books about blind dogs, per se, but books that made people feel something. So I started a little series of stories about two friends named Laura and Sarah. On notebook paper, I penned the tale of their friendship and elementary school escapades. I illustrated the covers with stick people, my only illustrative talent, and stapled the pages together. Then I wrote rave reviews on the back and drew New York Times bestseller stamps on them. Hey, go big or go home, right? I loved writing so much I decided to give novels a try. I penned 20 whole pages about a girl and her mother who were chased by a truck driver. I cranked out a tale about a haunted garage and another about a kid with the superpower to make things smell like strawberries. I got so lost in those stories every day after school that I forgot to do my homework, but I had found my calling. Math homework didn't matter until I got my report card. When I was 11 and my father died, I discovered writing was cathartic and therapeutic. I could feel my burdens being lifted when I wrote about the pain and the void that accompanied my daddy's sudden passing. as I banged out words on my brother typewriter.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.